Hello and welcome to another Chief Talks video. Today we're talking about why I think Modern is great on paper, but it's also awful. I think it's like one of my least favorite formats at the moment, and I'm going to explain why I think that. Where on paper, it looks like it's great right now because there's 50 decks, you can play whatever you want. But the issue as to why I think it's bad is because every single game kind of feels the same, and every single deck always does what they're supposed to do every single game. Like the amount of variance has gone down, which is a mixture of cards that have been printed that try to make the game the same every single time, such as Mystic Sanctuary or Astrolabe. But I think it's much deeper than that. I was thinking to myself, when was the last time I loved Modern? And how long has it been? And when did this all take a turn? Because right now it's the same cycle. New set comes out, I love it for 2 weeks, and then I realize I'm doing the same thing over and over again. The matchups are just the same thing over and over again. Tom Ross said to me this week that Modern is just picking a deck and picking the cards for its sideboard, and then knowing how to play, knowing how to play and knowing how to sideboard. But that is what Modern is, which is very true. But now it really feels worse than that. That sure, you pick the right deck and it just everything repeats itself. Every deck will always hit that sideboard card. Every deck will always have an answer or have the correct start. And so it's a huge hyperbole, but it's to get my point across. And so I'm pointing to when I thought Modern was great in my eyes. I honestly loved it up until about War of the Spark. War of the Spark is when I was like, this is great. Modern's phenomenal. I was going to all these GPs. I was in love with Phoenix. I was also in love with Azorius Control at the time because Narset just came out and Teferi just came out. And they were phenomenal, back-breaking cards. Everyone said they would do their strategies. And it was a super fun time. I really, really enjoyed that format. And I'm not pointing to Modern Horizons, but this is the time as to when everything just downhill. And I'm not saying it's because of Modern Horizons or power creep. And the reason why I think that Modern's so awful lately is because of the London Mulligan. So I'll show you when Modern Horizons came out. Modern Horizons came out June 14th. When was the article written about London Mulligan announcing it to us? It was June 3rd, the London Mulligan, and it coming out. So it was at the same time, so it has the appearance of like Modern Horizons was the start of everything going downhill. And we blame power creep, which I think is partially it, but I think the bigger reason as to why Modern is so awful, not as fun, boring, is because of London Mulligan. And I want to go down here to testing the Mulligan. Where it says there's also a risk that combo decks could abuse a very strong mulligan to much more reliably assemble a combo early in the game, which initially was a big problem that we thought that we were going to have with Neobrand, but that deck's awful. And then they talk about other issues such as aggressive decks always having their best draw, or control decks always having the right answer. And I think that was something that spawned to actually be a bigger problem than what they anticipated. Because you look at every single deck, what does the aggro deck always have? They always have that one drop, turn one. They always have Swift Spear. They always have Goblin Guide. And they always have that strong start. The mulligan to 6, oh, I got the good 6. Oh, I'll go to 5. Oh, I still got a very strong 5 that can very easily win a lot of the time because of how powerful cards are being made. You look at control, when they sideboard, they'll go down to 5 now, but they'll hit that Rest in Peace. They'll hit those ley lines. They're looking at way more cards than they used to. Instead of looking at 7 and 6 and 5, now they're looking at 7, 7, 7 and forming the perfect turn 1, 2, 3 and hoping you draw out of it. I think that it's created this culture as everyone should be able to play the game, that variants should be taken out. And I believe they're going towards that direction, which the new double face cards, trying to avoid flood. But I've heard a lot of positive things about that, so I think some things are hit and miss. I think that was a good hit, but I do think this mulligan was a miss. And so that's my biggest quarrel, is having this one thing like take over the game so much more than I think people realize. And this is all my own opinion, that it really influences matches to how aggressively people mulligan to 6 to 5, and how aggressive you are with your sideboard strategies. It creates a much more fast, intense gameplay, always having to have these perfect hands to really sculpt your turn 1 and turn 2 and turn 3, and then hoping you rip off the top after that. But every single game feels the same right now. I always feel like I'm always up against Amulet with turn 1 Amulet Vigor, turn 2 Dryad, turn 3 Titan, over and over and over. Same with Tron. Tron always has turn 3 Tron, whether they're on the play and the draw, it doesn't matter. People will go to 3 every single game now, aggressively going for it. That's just what you do. And now I want to talk about the decks that we have. You have Uro Piles. It used to be worse when you'd have to have Astrolabe, and they would just start with that, and that was just another level of consistency. But you look at all these decks, every single Uro deck does the exact same thing. You're going to have your 1 mana answer, you're going to have your turn 2 removals, and you're going to have your turn 3 Uro. After that, doesn't really matter because Uro will just take over the game. But it's always the same game plan every single game when you play against these decks. It's when you go into it, you're expecting to go up against the exact same strategy over and over and over. And it's just boring and repetitive. And it's sad because like I know the decks, whatever I choose, is also doing the same thing. That my game plan is always going to come through. That it's not about coming from behind. It's more about, am I bringing the right strategy to fight your strategy? Because we're both going to be optimal that whole way through. Because our hands are always going to be sculpted to be what we need to be in that matchup. Another deck, Azorius Control. How you will tend to, say you have an OK 7, 3 lands, some bad cryptic commands, but no early interaction. Before, I honestly think you would just always keep that. Now it's just like, why would I not go to 6? I could literally search for way more perfect things, and the cost is, in my opinion, not high enough. That I'm still gonna look at 7, and I'll just get rid of this 5-drop from my hand. It lets me mulligan more aggressively to do the same thing each game. And let's look at another one. Rakdos Shadow. As I said, I feel like every time I go up against this deck, I'm always facing up against a turn 1 Swiftspear, turn 2 Scourge every single game. Or at least like a Shadow on turn 2. Every single game. I always have to deal with the same things over and over. And that's why I'm just so sick of playing this format. I don't know how it is in other formats, but at least for me in Modern, it's tiring. Like, I love Magic. I love the game, but with the loss of any reason to really play competitively, unless I want to go grind on Arena, and a mixture of I am playing the same play patterns over and over and over. When I go up against humans, I expect the turn 1 Noble or turn 1 Aether Vial every single game. And then you look at Death and Taxes. They go down aggressively because they're always going to keep a hand with a Vial or keep a hand with the Stoneforge Mystic. And if that's not in their 7, they're mulliganing that. It doesn't matter if they have like a decent turn 1 Giver into a turn 2 Leonin Arbiter. It's not worth it. Like, Modern's too efficient now. Like, okay, that was all right hand. Like, you know what I mean? They're gonna mulligan aggressively is what I'm saying. People are mulliganing way more aggressively because why not? Why not go down to 6 when you're still looking at 7 to have a much more aggressive start to try and win the game? And so the consistency of it is my biggest complaint as to why I hate it so much. Because you look at all these decks, they're all based around having such a strong turn 1 play. And that it's worth going down to 6, sacrificing an OK 7 to have these explosive starts from all these decks. Dredge, sculpting, you'll go down to 3 to sculpt. Amulet, you'll go down to 5. A big one is mulliganing aggressively for Reclaimer. and it'll do the entire work for you. No matter what matchup you're in, if you have Torn Reclaimer, you're gonna win. I was coaching my brother while he was playing it, and it was just like, I told him, I was like, just Mulligan literally until you hit Reclaimer. That's all you had to do. And where's he at? He's effing freaking 4-0 now. It's like easiest 4-0 so far of his life. I just like it doesn't matter what, you just mulligan aggressively. Just go to it. It doesn't matter. That's what is changing, is just these aggressive mulligans to let you have these consistent strategies that will just take over the game. And so that's what I got. That's why I think Modern is great, because you can literally play anything you want, as I've learned this week when I played Rats. But it's also awful because you're literally playing against the same thing over and over. I know if you play in paper, you don't get this. You don't get to play against all these strategies over and over, which I'm jealous of in a sense. But if you're playing online and playing it over and over and over, these patterns happen over and over and over that you tend to see. And today I just spent the entire stream just playing Legacy and Vintage. Didn't care. And it was just super enjoyable because everything was just, I don't know, brand new. So yeah, I think the solution to this is just honestly go back to Vancouver, but keep it the same for limited. That maybe limited construction should have different type of mulligans, but I think that's what's been like taxing me and why I think that should change. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. If you think I'm crazy or nuts or repeating myself, let me know. Just comment down below. I don't care. I just need to rant about it because I can't. I'm so sick of this format. But yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Monday to Saturday, 2 to 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Come join us down below. Have a wonderful day.